Morning all. So I'm just working off from page 35 in your booklets, and the first lot of notes are on page 38. So, look, we track every month. We do a variance budget, so we just track how we expected to do with how we actually did. And look, our cost of production has gone up from our initial budget set before the start of the season, and our initial budget was about $3.70 a kilo milk solid for the costs, and we're up to around about $3.90 now. Now look, the increase has come about due to lower budgeted milk production, partly through the environmental conditions we've experienced over the last couple of months, and also the loss of some leased land, which resulted in about 30 cows less in the herd than we originally thought we were going to have. So look, some of the costs did come down, particularly in animal health, reproduction and feed, as well as fertiliser, just through the loss of that lease. However, some fixed costs such as labour and so forth remain the same no matter how much land you have. So inevitably that has pushed our cost of production slightly higher. Overall, our expenses are largely in line with expectation, but we are a long way away from where we originally targeted at the $3.50 a kilo milk solid cost. Look, although production is down about 10%, through the lift in the payout from the start of the season $1, which results in about $60,000 increase in income from original budget, just based on the payments to May. Our income's actually lifted on original budget, and also with the loss of the leased land, the additional cows sold meant we've got earlier stock income than we expected, as well as Fonterra bringing the dividend payments forward. From an expense side, season to date, we're tracking fairly well, with the expenses overall down about $20,000 from the same time last year. Animal health has been higher and is taken up probably about 70% of the original budget already for the season to date. So look, this is predominantly down to a high level of mastitis and also milk fever, just considering the environment that we've gone through calving. We've had lower feed inputs this year, so PK's been down significantly since original budget, and I think that works out at about a saving of about $18,000 for the season so far. And general expenses have been up due to repairs and maintenance requirements being higher, and also coming earlier in the season than we thought they were going to. And the overheads are a little bit under just because of a timing issue around rates and ACC levies. So an important part is we took a bit of a pulse check and thought the landscape's changed a little bit now. We've got a revised payout of $1 increase from the start. We've also come through a fairly difficult time from an on-farm perspective with the rain, and therefore it was probably timely that we actually had a bit of a look at where our budget was going to sit out to the end of the season. So on page 39 and page 40, you'll see that's our updated or reforecast budget and cash flow, with actuals up to end of September. So look, we've re-budgeted the production side of it, and I think our original budget was about 183,000 kilos, and that's come down with the loss in production over the last few months to just over 178,000 kilos, or 415 kilos a cow. And from an expense perspective, As I said earlier, our animal health is sitting fairly high, and we were expecting originally to spend $30,000. We now reforecast that to be $40,000 over the course of the season. So this reflects, as discussed before, some of the animal health issues we had earlier in the season with the wet weather, as well as we're pretty conscious of the impact that eczema had on the herd last season, and so we want to be quite proactive in our treatment of that early on, and so we've decided to go for a zinc bolus option, which is more expensive, but looking at all the options and taking advice from the vets, we decided that would I suppose cover us the best way possible, and for if we do get another bad eczema spell. We initially budgeted to need 200 tonne of PK on the farm, and we did a cost of $200 a tonne. However, we were able to contract 160 tonne at $190, so we made a bit of a saving, as well as we didn't use as much over the winter-spring period, so we're hoping that we won't actually need the additional 40 tonne. Also, we made a call this year not to purchase maize silage, as the infrastructure we have on the farm doesn't support the feeding out and the utilisation of that feed in an effective manner. So we initially budgeted $36,000 for the maize. With the tighter calving pattern that we've been able to achieve through the use of the seeders, we've identified that having pasture silage would be a better form of supplement. So we've gone ahead and we've purchased that. Season to date, there's been a saving of $23,000, although some expense categories are expected to be higher than originally budgeted. Others are under, meaning that reforecasting budget to the end of the season is only showing a $24,000 farm working saving. So in terms of the reforecasting budget as well, just some assumptions that we've put in there. We've decided to continue to use the current Fonterra milk price, even with the latest two GDT auctions lifting significantly, and also the NZX milk futures currently being 15% above the current milk price. We've decided to do this just to be a bit conservative. It's not an actual payout until it's in the bank account, so if we're budgeting a little bit under, then any gain or additional lift would be a bonus. A lift of 10% in advance payout to May would equate to an additional $80,000 on the effective farm surplus. So that would take us to about $135,000 effective farm surplus. And the other point to note would be now we are sitting in a positive effective farm surplus, and the budget being reforecast through the end of the season. From a financial perspective, the Farm Management Committee will now probably turn their focus on to how best to allocate the surplus, considering over the course of the last season, like many others, we took on significant level of additional debt to get us to this point.
Cool, thanks, Mike. Any questions? Wade?
Yeah, Mike, do you want to comment, or has there been any thought about how the previous season loss has been dealt with in the scheme of, the reality on most farms is that loss will have to be dealt with at some point in the future. So is there any thought around how that might be incorporated into the budget?
Yeah, for sure. So I think for those of you that were coming to the focus days last season, you would have seen we allocate about a $200,000 cost towards interest. So that was based on, we took a view that the average, at that time we were budgeting to do 200,000 kilos, and the average debt service or debt loading was about $20 a kilo, or $20 a milk solid. And we sort of just ran with a 5% interest rate at that time, which was probably about where the market was 18 months ago for interest rates on an average operator. So we made about a $350,000 loss in an effective farm surplus last year. So that has been added on to onto the $4 million of debt we associated to the farm. And then we also had a relook at the interest rates and felt that the market probably came back to about 4.5% at the start of this season. So that's how you've got roughly your $200,000 interest cost still sitting the same. So although our debt loading went up, the cost reduced. So net effect at the moment is not much, but the Trump effect certainly having a bit of an influence on interest rates at the moment. So that may change.
Just as a bit of an additional context here, obviously we've been completely open and transparent with the numbers and the budget and that sort of thing, and if we had debt loading specifically for the farm, we probably would have done that too, but the reality is the farm is one part of a much bigger business that obviously fits within the school. Now the school itself carries debt, but in terms of what aspect, what proportion of that we attribute to the farm, we haven't specifically got that sort of within the school's overall accounts, which is why we've basically attributed the average debt loading to the farm just to make it essentially recognisable, or relatable, sorry. Yep.
Yeah, that was sort of the question I was going to ask. Can we just sort of lead off that? How long do you think it's going to take the farm to pay that debt back? Because most farmers here have had to do exactly the same thing, or even greater. Has the farm budgeted how long it's going to take to pay that back? Or have you done any forecasts? Because I think there's a whole lot of farmers out there who are just still shaking their head, sure they've got the debt and it's increased, but has someone done some forecasting for payback and obviously tax liability?
Yep. So I suppose, look, hey, if we've got a farm surplus now at I think around about the $50,000 mark, and we had $350 borrowed, that's simply 7 years to pay back, isn't it? Without obviously taking into account any deferred maintenance that got put on, or fertiliser that wasn't put on over that time period that needs to be caught up, or capital expenditure that might need to be done in that time frame. So look, it is the time frame's the medium term rather than the short term. The original question was about so we borrowed $350,000 last year to fund ourselves through, and had there been any workings done on how long that would take us to repay it?
I mean, I think the answer as well to that is completely honestly, hand on our heart, at the moment, probably not. We've come out of survival mode last year into let's just try and get a profit this year. Obviously, at the moment, we're starting to scope stage 2 modelling in terms of what the future farm system looks like for this farm to actually be a sustainable farm system from both an environmental, a financial, people perspective, all those aspects. So, honestly, here and now, we haven't, but it's something that we need to be doing. I mean, we're sort of coming out of that sort of survival mode to where we are now. It's but it's definitely something that we need to be considering more, as I think your point was to sort of raise, is I don't know how many other farmers are sort of thinking that as well. It's obviously something that we do need to probably start putting a bit more attention to.